Yeah, this is my fourth time doing this, and you guys are probably wondering all the hoops I have to jump through just to be able to perform. Before I performed my first time, I called up the club and I said, look, I've never done stand-up before, but I want to do it for the first time. And they're like, well, you sure you want to do it? I'm like, yeah. They're like, okay. That's all it took. So I was on my computer last night and I was using Microsoft Word, and it froze on me. And nothing happened. I tried clicking it 30 more times. Finally, it closes out, and I get a dialog box that pops up that says, Microsoft Windows has experienced a problem. Would you like to send an error report? And there's two options, send and don't send. Does anyone ever click send? Does Microsoft deploy a team of monkeys working around the clock, handling these error reports and solving them? And so I click send, and when you click send, you get a confirmation number, and it says, use this number when you call Microsoft. So I did, and I was thinking, before I called, you know how when people they struggle to come up with words that start with a certain letter so they know what letter you're trying to say? How come no one ever does that for numbers? Because I called, and the monkey answered, and he's like, what's the confirmation number? I'm like, it's B as in boy, M as in monkey, 3 as in 3,368. No, 67. Oh, wait, you don't need to do that for numbers. So, a lot of terrorism going on in this world, and it got me thinking, these terrorists, these suicide bombers, if they blow themselves up and kill innocent civilians, they get promised heaven and 72 virgins. How'd they come up with the number 72? I'd like to know the negotiations that went down to arrive at that number. So the suicide bomber goes in for an interview, and his interviewer is like, we'd like to hire you. If you kill people, you'll be guaranteed to admit one person to heaven and 60 virgins. Fuck no, 75, and that's final. Well, why should we give you 75? Because my brother Muhammad got 50, my uncle Muhammad got 60, this Muhammad won 75. But still, why should we give you 75? Because I have more experience. I just went through a 3-month Al-Qaeda boot camp. Plus you can't even promise me long-term employment, and the benefits are terrible. All right, fine, 70. No, let's make it 72 for inflation. All right, you got a deal. I guess that's how they got to you. So, anyone here a couple months ago go trick-or-treating on Halloween? Yeah. One guy. So anyway, I was always wondering, how come all these kids go up to people's houses, they go door to door, and they all ask the same question, and they always get the same answer. And they only want one answer, so why even ask the question? I'll tell you why. When I was growing up as a little kid, I was going trick-or-treating, and I knocked on this one guy's door, and he opened the door. It was a guy who's balding in his 50s, wearing a wife beater, potato chip crumbs on his stomach. I'm like, trick or treat. He's like, trick, I'm a pedophile, get the fuck in here! Anyway, so, anyone here try online dating? Anyway, my first online date didn't go too well. It lasted about 15 seconds, but it took me 150 seconds to figure out what the hell just happened. This girl comes up to me and she's like, are you Oren? I'm like, yeah, are you Jessica? She's like, I'm so sorry, I'm not Jessica. My second date off an online dating site went a little bit better with a different girl. This girl comes up to me and she's like, are you Oren? I'm like, yeah. Are you Dana? She's like, yeah. I'm like, how'd you know it was me, Oren? She's like, what do you mean? You're holding a fucking sign with my name written on a Sharpie mark like you do in the airport, so I wasn't going to mistake you for anyone else. So a lot of girls are hesitant about meeting a guy off an online dating site, which is understandable. But to ease their fears, I tell them, look, there was a recent survey that showed about 10% of all marriages in the US last year were due at least in some part to online dating. I'm like, oh, that's great, I didn't know that. I don't tell them they're also responsible for nearly 50% of all missing persons cases. They don't need to know. Yeah, and if I call them after the day, they don't call me back, make it maybe 51%. So, have we got any sports fans in the crowd? Yeah. I figured people would respond to that. So, I was watching the Super Bowl last year between the Giants and the Patriots, and after the Giants won, one of the sideline reporters was interviewing Eli Manning. For those of you who don't know, he's the star quarterback of the New York Giants. And they're like, how does it feel to be champions? He's like, yeah, we're world champions. World champions? They don't play football in any other country. The only time that makes sense is if after we defeated the Nazis, you see the U.S. military celebrating two-time World War champions. So now I'm going to talk about another topic that everyone usually likes to talk about, death. So, I was wondering, when they interview people on TV, let's say on the news, and they ask them about a family member that just died, and they start getting worked up, they get emotional about it, and then they apologize. Why do they feel the need to apologize? So I was watching this newscast on NBC, and this guy's brother was just murdered, and they were interviewing him. They're like, how do you feel losing your brother? He's like, it was horrible. Excuse me, sorry. You should be sorry. We're trying to do a fucking broadcast here. Anyway, I was wondering, is it supposed to make it okay when you're about to tell someone a close relative just died to make sure they're sitting down first before you tell them the news? And if they're sitting down first, they'll be okay with the news no matter what? David, are you sitting down? Yeah. Your brother was murdered last night. Okay. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm fine, I'm sitting down. If I was standing up, it would have been pretty tragic. But then I was saying, what happens if you forget to warn them? David, your brother was murdered last night. Oh my God, if only I was sitting down! So, my friend John just died. He didn't really, it's just for my stand-up routine. And I was always wondering, when you go to people's funerals and you hear the eulogies, how is it possible that every person who ever lived was the best and nicest person who ever existed? Shouldn't that only be reserved for one person? So they asked me to speak at John's funeral, and I just got up there and I was honest. I'm like, yeah, so we came here to commemorate John's life. He was a good friend of mine, but let me be honest with you, he's a fucking asshole. Even if it was freezing outside, he wouldn't give you the shirt off his back. And you know how they say when people walk into a room, it would light up and people would gravitate towards them? Well, when John walked into a room, people would turn off the lights and leave. So, I'm sure everyone here rides the subway, even if you're from out of town. You know how crazy it is riding the subway here. So, first of all, it makes no sense to me how people try to rush onto the train before you can get off. It's like a game. You gotta get off in time. So anyway, as people rush off, and then when they get to the stairs, it looks like they're looking up at fucking Mount Everest. Like you want to help them out, maybe give them rope, oxygen mask, gloves. But then I see, for some of these people, it doesn't even matter. They're so fat. They take up 2 seats on the train. Excuse me, did you swipe your Metro card twice? No, I don't think so, so get the fuck up. What was that? No, don't complain to me about the airlines wanting to start charging you for 2 seats. You'll get 2 meals with that as well. So, I was thinking, shouldn't there be a numerical limit to the percentage of effort you should be able to say you put into something? 100%? Hey, that makes sense. 110%? 1,000%? Where do we draw the line? This guy goes in for an interview, and one of the questions he gets asked is, if you get this job, how much effort would you put into it? And the guy's like, I give it my all, 110%. Interviewer's like, oh, okay. Interviewer goes to his boss, he's like, what should we do? Should we hire him? He said 110%. His boss says, fuck no, let's hire the guy who said 1,000%. Pay him the same salary and get nearly 10 times the productivity. Then I'm thinking, how do you even get to 110%? That's hard to even calculate in your head. It's like, you did a great job this year, so it's 100%. But you promised 110%, so how are we going to do that? Well, I have an idea. My mother-in-law's in the office today. She lives 10 miles away. So drive her a mile, let her walk the other 9 miles, we'll call that the extra 10%. One thing I hate here about is going to the movies, other than $14 and being down the drain. But other than that, there's people who are always talking in movies. The first type of talking is people who talk to each other in the theater. Did anyone here ever see the movie I Am Legend with Will Smith? Yeah. So, for those of you who haven't, it's a post-apocalyptic movie with Will Smith and his dog, and there's virtually no dialogue in the movie. But there's this family sitting in front of me in the theater that had more lines in the movie than Will Smith. And the award for Best Actor in a Starring Role goes to the family sitting in row 3, right by the aisle. But the other type of talking in movies that even makes less sense is people yell out to the actors on screen, telling them what to do. It usually doesn't work, but I have seen certain circumstances where if you scream loud enough and it reaches a certain decibel level, it will impact the actors' decisions on screen. Because I was watching it, but it can get really confusing, especially when the movie on the screen, and someone's like, look out, there's an iceberg. I was like, oh, okay. And then he avoided the iceberg. I'm like, what the fuck? In first grade, I thought this had a different ending. Guess not. So I was recently promoted to manager at a big accounting firm I work at. Obviously not due to my comedic ability, but still. So we recently had a 2-day new manager training out in Princeton, New Jersey, and we made great use of our time. The second day predominantly building Lego cars. We built a Lego speed car and a Lego armored car. I'm thinking, first of all, can we build a train so we could leave training early? And second of all, why do we need an armored car? Like, we have angry clients, but we have malpractice insurance for that. Like, maybe it would make more sense to maybe build a competent Lego tax professional. This way we won't have to buy as much malpractice insurance. My name's Oren and I don't approve this message at all.